So this is how it ends with 2022. 2022 overall wasn't really a great year for huge blockbuster films to be released. 2022 wasn't also a great year for anything that much to be specific, but it was a great year for some films to be released. And we did have some great movies like Dragon Ball Superhero and One Piece film Red and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and Clerks 3 and Avatar Way of Water. But still, it wasn't a good year for huge films like with Marvel, for example. And Marvel is not doing very good like it was back then. Back then, Marvel used to be so much fun to watch, but now it just doesn't seem to be that much fun anymore. And ever since with the Marvel Disney Plus shows, like with Moon Knight and Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, yeah, they weren't doing so successful with audiences. Well, Miss Marvel was alright, and it was doing alright with audiences. Moon Knight was good, and was actually doing very well with audiences. She-Hulk, not so much. Not so much She-Hulk. Let's also not forget about the passing of two iconic actors who sadly passed away this year. Kevin Conroy and J.C. David Frank. May they both rest in peace. Anyway, since 2022 is about to end, I decided to do a very fun video talking about my favorite movies of 2022. My favorite movies of the year. Now, to be warned, this is going to be my personal list. Alright? We are all entitled to our own opinions, so don't get mad if your favorite movie is not in here. Alright? Only the movies that I've seen throughout 2022, which are considered to be my favorites, are going to be in this list. Alright? So please be respectful through the comment section down below. If you have a list of favorite movies that you really like of 2022, then leave it in the comment section down below, and I would definitely like to read that list. Anyways, yeah. Without further ado, let's get to the video.
新時代はこの未来だ世界中全部変えてしまえば変えてしまえば
Up to number 22, we have Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Now, when I first saw this movie, I thought that I really enjoyed it, but I kind of felt a little bit disappointed, mainly because of the rumored cameos. And basically, this movie had a lot of problems during development of the movie. Like, the writer only had a few weeks to write the screenplay for the movie, but then COVID-19 happened, and the writer had to restart again from scratch, and that explains some of the writing issues for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But to be honest, I do really like this movie. I do really love it. I know there are some flaws, like with some of the writing. The visuals are amazing for the most part, but the problem I have is that with the story. Well, the story's not bad, but the story could have done a little bit more better. Plus, it doesn't really help the fact that Sam Raimi, the director of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Now, I have no problems against Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is by far one of my favorite film directors. Best known for his work on the Evil Dead trilogy and on the Raimi vs. Spider-Man trilogy. I really like his work. But it doesn't really help the fact that Sam Raimi, I mean, he had creative freedoms for this movie, but it doesn't really help the fact that Sam Raimi never actually seen an episode of WandaVision and has no idea what is going on, and it does feel a little bit disconnected, but it does feel connected at the same time, but a little disconnected. I mean, Wanda is by far one of the most evil MCU villains out there. I mean, yeah, she went from being a villain to a hero, and then villain again, and now anti-hero. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, still, she is by far one of the best MCU characters ever. But her character kind of feels a little bit jarring, and it kind of feels going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And basically, yeah, it feels something a bit different about Wanda. But, yeah. But let's talk about the positives. The story, for the most part, is good, but not great. It's not as good as the first movie, but it could have done a little bit more better. But hey, I really liked about how things kicked off from WandaVision and Spider-Man No Way Home into this. And they did an absolute amazing job with this movie, with the visuals and the costume designs are absolutely pretty awesome. I also really like the cameos as well. Like, we get to see Captain Carter, we get to see Black Bolt, we also get to see Mr. Fantastic, even though it's not the main MCU continuity Mr. Fantastic, because, well, we have no idea what he looks like just yet, but I'm hoping to see what he looks like in the main MCU continuity pretty soon. But hey, I really like how he appeared in this movie, and that was pretty awesome. And we also got Professor X. That was absolutely pretty awesome, and seeing Patrick Stewart reprising his role as Professor X was pretty awesome, even though it's not the one from the Fox X-Men universe. And people were assuming that, hey, Professor X is going to be a movie, this is going to be awesome. Maybe this is going to be like the Fox X-Men universe Professor X. But no, instead, it is a different Professor X. It is a different one, but it has the same costume from the 90s X-Men cartoon from X-Men the Animated Series. But hey, I still really like it overall. It's still one of the best cameos I've seen, and Patrick Stewart does a really good job, and he still has it. He still has it as Professor X, and that was pretty cool. I also really like the performances, like with Benedict Cumberbatch. He's good as Doctor Strange as always, and also Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda. That was overall pretty cool. I think she steals the show as playing one of the best MCU characters and now turning to this evil villain in order to get into her way, where she kills a lot of people. God knows how many people she's killed. She's probably killed a lot more people than Vegeta. Anyway, yeah, that was overall pretty cool. Also, America Chavez was pretty cool as well. I think Xochitl Gomez did a really amazing job on playing the character. I also really liked about how she has like these awesome powers where she could like punch through and you know, with those star things, so we could go jump into another universe for one another. That was a pretty cool power. That is an absolute pretty cool power. But she, well, but the movie was overall pretty good, and I really liked how it's basically like this B-list horror movie, and how it takes a lot of inspirations from awesome horror movies. By far one of the most scariest MCU films ever made, and just one of the best movies of 2022, and one of the most enjoyable films. Even though the story was not great, but yeah. And the writing does have some issues, but still it is pretty good, and it is still pretty fun to watch. And yeah, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, really good MCU horror film. For what we got for 21 is Prey. Prey is by far one of the most anticipated sequels out there, but I kind of kept my expectations a little bit low because the last Predator movie that I have seen was basically The Predator 2018, and that movie was shit. That movie was... Sorry about that. That movie was utter shit. That movie was like the worst thing that ever happened to the Predator franchise, and it was overall not really that good. I didn't really like the characters. The story was not too great, and the story was not really memorable. The characters weren't really that memorable as well. Plus, they even got Yvonne Stravinsky, you know, Sarah Walker from Chuck, in that movie. But when I saw Prey, I thought, wow, this was overall a really great movie, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. It was by far one of the best prequels I have seen. Basically, this movie is about how the Predator landed on Earth for the first time prior before the events of the first Predator movie. But yeah, and it's also about like this Indian tribe that basically knows that there's like a alien that there's basically like this alien threat that is coming out, and they have to be careful and also are trying to hunt him down at the same time, but get into some trouble along the way. But overall, I just really like this. This is absolutely pretty wonderful. The characters are overall really likable. Basically the main female protagonist is overall pretty cool and is absolutely pretty skilled. I think that they did a really amazing job on this protagonist. I think they did a really amazing job with her. I forgot the name, but still, it was pretty cool, and overall, yeah. But what I really like most of all is the Predator in this movie. The Predator in this movie is overall really awesome, and the way about how he uses like this about how he uses like these new gadgets, these new weapons and everything like that we never seen throughout any of the Predator film franchise was overall pretty amazing. He uses like this shield and basically uses like these floaty thingies to help hunt, and basically, yeah, it was absolutely pretty awesome. And the Predator's design in this movie was absolutely pretty cool, and a lot more scarier than the one from the 1980 movie, which, yeah, that was overall pretty cool. That was absolutely pretty wonderful. That was a brilliant design, and the acting is overall pretty good. The action is amazing, and the horror elements behind this movie are also pretty good too. I think that the director did a really amazing job, although sadly, this movie only had to be on streaming on Hulu and not in theaters, which was the most disappointing thing that I've ever known for the movie. And sometimes I really wish that we could have seen the characters doing a little bit more better with giving some character and all that. But in other words, this movie's overall still really good. I really liked it. And it was like a fun prequel. It was basically a prequel that was done right. It was absolutely pretty awesome. Plus, I really like seeing the gun that we saw from Predator 2. That was absolutely pretty awesome. And just absolutely pretty wonderful. Just amazing. And if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It's one of my favorite movies of 2022. In number 20 is Scream 2022. Scream 2022 was overall just a really awesome sequel and is absolutely by far one of the best horror movies of 2022 I've ever seen. I think that this movie was absolutely overall pretty amazing. I went to see this movie having little expectations and basically just keeping my expectations low because I didn't really like any of the rest of the Scream movies, mainly because of how terrible that all the other previous Scream sequels were. I didn't really like the sequels at all. I liked the first one. The first one was overall pretty good and is by far the most beloved classic horror movie I've seen. And seeing this horror movie, however, is pretty intense. The killings in this movie, wow, absolutely intense and absolutely amazing as well. And also the Scream mask and the costume designs are overall pretty cool. And just basically, yeah, and also to show that they aren't afraid to kill off some other old characters and everything like that. The only thing that I also really liked as well was with the new characters, like we have Huey from The Boys in this movie, where he turns to be a serial killer, one of the serial killers to be revealed of the Scream killer. And then we have then I think we have Billy's daughter. Yeah, basically we have the daughter of the villain from the first movie, Billy's daughter, and I really like the introduction of Billy's daughter. I think that the actress who played her did a really amazing job. I don't really remember her name other than that she was the daughter of Billy from the of Billy from the first Scream movie. But overall, that was absolutely pretty cool. And seeing some of the other casts, like seeing Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox reprising their roles as their respective characters, was overall pretty cool. An absolutely fun horror film that is definitely worth the watch for. And number 19, we have Bob's Burgers, the movie. Bob's Burgers was by far one of my favorite animated TV shows I've ever seen. It was absolutely pretty wonderful. I really liked the show, and the series was overall pretty amazing. And when I heard that there was going to be a Bob's Burgers movie, I was a little hyped, but I didn't really know what to expect from it. But then when I saw the trailers and the TV spots and everything with this movie looked pretty awesome. The animation looked really cool, and the movie reminded me a bit more like the Simpsons movie. And I unfortunately didn't really had a chance to see the movie in theaters, but luckily I saw it on Blu-ray, and I decided to watch the movie on Blu-ray, and it was overall pretty amazing and absolutely pretty wonderful. Sure, the story is not great by any means, but it was overall pretty good, and it was an absolute wonderful animated comedy musical. It was absolutely pretty amazing. Sadly, this movie bombed at the box office, I guess because of poor marketing. But yeah, it's a shame that this movie bombed at the box office. But I think that it's overall one of the greatest movies that Fox has ever done, especially under the Disney banner. And basically, yeah, this was overall pretty great. I really liked the story. The story was pretty good. We have the great likable characters as always from the show, but we also really take the backstory of the main villain. I forgot the name, but yeah, and why he kills and everything like that, and expecting him to be the killer and everything like that. And basically, yeah, the animation does look really nice. It looks visually spectacular, and the characters are well animated. It reminds me a bit more like the Simpsons movies animation style, and he overall did a really amazing job with it. The humor is absolutely pretty amazing. The voice acting is pretty solid. Like we had the original voice cast representing roles as their respective characters, and basically, yeah, it's just absolutely pretty wonderful. Basically, the plot overall just being pretty good. On the surface, it may seem like your typical animated comedy musical, but under the surface, it proves to be more than that. These characters get to go through depths and get to go through some expectations, and overall, yeah, while it's not great and not the greatest movie of 2022, it is still pretty fun. It's absolutely really wonderful, and overall, just the best movie of 2022. One of the best picks of 2022. Then coming up for what we have is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the movie. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, I didn't really know what to expect for this film. I love Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. It's one of my childhood shows that I've seen, and it's one of my favorite Disney TV shows that I've seen. One of my favorite Disney animated shows in general. And basically, yeah. And when I first heard that they were going to make this movie, I didn't really know what to expect. But other than hearing both Andy Samberg and John Mulaney's voice for two respective characters, and I gotta say, yeah. But watching this movie on Disney Plus, it was absolutely pretty wonderful. It's absolutely amazing. It's just pretty much just wonderful. It's absolutely just really good. The story is overall just pretty much fun. It's basically like a sequel to Roger Rabbit. It's basically like Roger Rabbit, but replace Roger Rabbit with Chip and Dale. And also have the Rescue Rangers, the rest of the Rescue Rangers team, and basically, yeah. And I just overall just really like how fun this movie was. I really like the animation. The animation does look really nice and very creative. Yeah, sure, sometimes the visuals can get pretty obvious and everything like that, but still, it is pretty cool and it is pretty fun to watch. And yeah, especially about how they make fun of animation throughout over the years and everything like that. And some really good pop culture references here and there, even if they don't use it too much. Yeah, the movie does have pop culture references, but they don't really overuse it too much. And that's what I really like about this movie. And I just overall just like seeing about how these characters are overall just pretty developed. Like how Chip and Dale went in their separate ways, and then they got back together again after finding out that their friend Monty has been missing, and later they are solving the case. And they're solving the case, and that this is not like how they were. This is not like how they were doing it in the show. And basically, yeah, overall, this movie was absolutely pretty cool, and some really cool voice acting and everything like that, and some funny moments here and there, some really great jokes, and some great pop culture references and great character references and everything like that. She is absolutely pretty wonderful. And yeah, this is a fun movie for 2022. Then coming up for what we got is The Batman. The Batman is overall one of the best DC films that I have ever seen. It's one of the best DC films out there, one of the best superhero movies in general. Even though that 2022 wasn't really exactly a good year for DC, mainly because of how there were news and rumors that were spreading around that they are going to reboot the DC Extended Universe, or basically, yeah, until James Gunn basically is now like the new chairman of DC Studios, and now they're planning to reboot the DC universe, and basically, yeah. But hey, at least we're still gonna have the sequel to the Batman, and yeah, I'm very excited for that. But anyways, The Batman is overall by far one of the best DC films ever. It feels more like a detective movie, but then again, feeling more like a detective movie, that goes to Batman Mask of the Phantasm. It feels more like Batman Mask of the Phantasm feels more like a detective movie and a love story, like most of the old detective noir love story films. But it proves to be more than just that. And in the Batman, it proves to be like a really awesome detective movie I've ever seen. And this is the first time that we ever get to see both Batman and Commissioner Gordon working together as a team, working together as detectives. They overall did a really amazing job with it. I like Robert Pattinson as Batman. I think Robert Pattinson did a really amazing job. I don't think that he's the best Bruce Wayne, and his Bruce Wayne wasn't really that good in my opinion. And his Batman, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but his Batman is not my favorite. He's not my favorite Batman. My favorite Batman would be Kevin Conroy. But anyway, yeah. He's still one of the coolest Batmans I've seen. And he does a really great job on playing this incarnation of Batman. And the actor of Commissioner Gordon did a really amazing job of playing Commissioner Gordon. Yeah, he did a really amazing job with it. And I also really like Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I think she did a really amazing job playing Catwoman. And I think that she overall was the perfect choice for playing this version of Catwoman. Just overall pretty cool. Absolutely pretty much wonderful. And just basically, yeah, the Riddler's by far one of the most menacing villains I've seen. And seeing about how he's well portrayed here than in Batman Forever was absolutely pretty cool. It was so menacing. It was so creepy. Having that Zodiac insane having that Zodiac killer was pretty cool for the Riddler. Just absolutely wonderful. And just overall, yeah, the movie just absolutely does a really good job playing to be the detective story, and basically, yeah, one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen, and one of my favorite superhero movies in general, and just absolutely one of my favorite films of 2022. It's just absolutely pretty amazing. The way about how the movie is shot, the way about how the movie looks is absolutely pretty amazing. The movie is shot and edited very well. The action is overall pretty amazing. The camera lighting just absolutely pretty cool. It looks very professional. It looks like a student film movie, and it looks like an indie film as well. It looks something like that, and they did a really excellent job with that. As you all know, I'm a film student myself. I'm in college classes right now doing film, and right now, yeah, this is pretty much my inspiration towards film, and this looks pretty cool. This, I'm definitely taking inspirations to do for filmmaking, and basically, yeah. And The Batman is just overall just an amazing movie. Just absolutely a wonderful DC movie. But yeah, overall, it is pretty good. And yeah. Have next is we have is Uncharted. I remember playing the video games as a kid, and I love playing the video games. I remember playing them for the first time since I was very young, and I still play them to this day. And when I heard that there was going to be a movie about it, I was a little hyped, but then I kept my expectations a little bit low. But ever since the Sonic the Hedgehog movie did really good, I think I got a little bit of faith into it, and including the Mortal Kombat 2021 movie, since that one did very good, I put my faith into this movie, and the movie was released in theaters, and I ended up seeing it with a friend of mine. And what did I think about it? Well, I think it was pretty good, and I absolutely really liked it. I overall really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I wouldn't say it was the best video game movie adaptation I've seen, but it does make it up with it with some great action sequences, some great visuals, and the great set locations and everything like that. And basically, yeah, the story is absolutely pretty awesome, even though it is a little bit obvious, and it takes inspiration from the first game, but it does mix some qualities into that, and also has some of the qualities mixed into the other previous games, like how Nathan and Sully were wearing tuxedos, like they did in the fourth game. And basically, yeah, they overall did an amazing job with it. Tom Holland, who played Spider-Man in the MCU, I think he was pretty good as Nathan Drake. I think that he did an amazing job on playing the character, and I think that he was good. I mean, the role could have given to Nathan Fillion, played Nathan Drake in an Uncharted fan film, but Tom Holland did a really solid job on this, and I really like the costume designs as well. And then we have Mark Wahlberg as Sully. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect, and plus he wasn't really that old to play Sully, but I think he did an excellent job. Plus, Nathan and Sully have like that both brother and backstabber, betrayal, bonding, but they did a really amazing job too, and they did pull it forward towards it. And basically, yeah. Also, I really like the actress who played Chloe. I think that they did a really amazing job with playing Chloe, and they did a really amazing job with how they set it up from the video games. Although I really wish that they could have done a little bit more better. Like we could have had like some enchanted monsters and all that, but I guess because of some issues, I guess, yeah. But in other words, I was pretty excited, and this movie was overall pretty good. And yeah, I think it was the best video game. Well, not the best video game movie adaptation, but a cool video game adaptation film whatsoever.
リアルゲームギリギリ綱渡りみたいな旋律認めない戻れない忘れたい夢の中にさして I want be free 見えるよ信じた
is Sonic 2. Sonic 2 was the most anticipated sequel that was ever encountered ever since the success of the first Sonic movie, and I had some high expectations for the sequel, and my expectations actually came true. I really liked about the way how they did a really amazing job with Sonic 2, and also about how they did more references to the Sonic video games, and basically, yeah, they did a really amazing job with it. 2022 was overall a really good year for Sonic. I mean, Sonic has a new good video game known as Sonic Frontiers, and from what I heard that it is overall pretty good. I never played the game yet. I haven't played it yet. I am planning to get the game soon. That, of course, along with God of War Ragnarok, but yeah. I am very excited for this, but anyway. Sonic 2 was overall one of the best video game movie adaptations I've ever seen, and it's one of the best video game movie adaptation sequels ever, and is one of the best sequels ever. I haven't seen like a really great sequel since, I don't know, Terminator 2 and everything like that. It's basically like the Avengers, but for Sonic characters and everything like that. Basically, yeah. They did a really amazing job improving with the characters, and the CGI is absolutely pretty wonderful, and by far has improved from the first movie. And given about how the budget has overall improved from the first movie, and how much of a bigger budget that he has given, and made a lot more money more than the first movie, and had a much more bigger budget than the first movie, is absolutely pretty impressive. The first post-credit scene of the Sonic movie, and then we finally got the movie, and what did I think about it? I think it was pretty good. I overall really liked about how good the expectations are, and also how high the stakes really are for the second movie, and how much that the movie had a big budget, more better than the first, and the CGI by far improving, and basically, yeah, they overall did a really amazing job with it. And one of my favorite parts of it are basically with the characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are by far one of my favorite video game characters I've seen, and seeing them interacting on the big screen was a dream come true for a Sonic fan, and I was pretty much on set for this movie, and this was amazing. The visual effects are pretty amazing and by far improved from the first movie. The characters have developed pretty well, and I also really like about how the flashback that from the first movie, I really like about how there were some ties for that from the first movie, and how they tied it more and expanded upon more in the sequel. And basically, yeah, they expanded more from the lore of Sonic on more better than the first movie. They expanded more on the sequels and everything like that. They did a really amazing job with this. And basically, yeah, I overall really liked how the characters were well portrayed, and Ben Schwartz does a really amazing job and gives his best performances as Sonic. Colleen O'Shaughnessy does a really great job on voicing Tails, and no one can do it as much as she could. She was the perfect voice. Does a really good job on playing Knuckles, and was overall pretty good. I overall really like about how it ties in the flashback scene of the first movie, and they overall did a really amazing job. And also the bonding, the relationship between Sonic and Knuckles was overall pretty cool, and was outstanding, pretty amazing, and they did a really amazing job with that. And seeing the friendship of having Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, that was pretty cool. And also Colleen O'Shaughnessy reprising her role as Tails was pretty cool, and she gets a lot more credit here and ever, and that's what I really like. They finally did a really amazing job giving Colleen O'Shaughnessy credit, since she had voiced Tails ever since, I believe since 2011, I'm not sure. I don't really remember, but yeah, she does a really great job on voicing Tails, and no one can ever voice Tails as good as her. She was the perfect she was the perfect actress to voice Tails, and the way about how she voiced Tails was overall pretty cool. Ben Schwartz does a really great job on playing Sonic as always. Sonic's character development is basically wanting to help, but sometimes just try not to make a mess and everything like that. But yeah, and the stakes in this movie are overall pretty high, a lot more high than the first movie. And having the Eggman robot was overall pretty cool and was absolutely outstanding. And Sonic turning into Super Sonic with the Chaos Emeralds was overall pretty cool. And Jim Carrey was overall pretty cool as Dr. Eggman as well. And he is pretty funny here like in the first movie. And overall, yeah, just absolutely wonderful. The action is shot and animated and edited very well. And the voice acting is overall pretty amazing. They did a really amazing job with it. And basically, yeah, this movie was overall just, well, amazing. And one of the best sequels I've ever seen. And just one of my favorite sequels in general. Just absolutely pretty wonderful. And some obvious really fun nods to the video games. And just some really cool stuff here. And basically, yeah, this is absolutely wonderful. This is one of the greatest sequels I've seen. And this is one of the best sequels of 2022.
Music 君が起こすマジック目を閉じれば未来が開いていつまでも終わりが来ないようにってこの歌を歌うよ You wanna play the other game ギリギリ綱渡りみたいな旋律認めない戻れない忘れたい夢の中にさして I wanna be free 見えるよし
Dad Sings. Where the Crawdad Sings is by far one of the most saddest films I've ever seen. It is absolutely sad. The movie made me really, really sad. And I didn't really know what to expect this movie, and that this movie was pretty much underrated. I had no idea what to expect other than that Reese Witherspoon was producing this movie, and I think that the songs for Taylor Swift was in there. I don't really remember, but yeah, I've seen a bit of a trailer, but I went into this movie not knowing what to expect, and I saw the movie, and I have to admit it was pretty cool. It was outstanding, and the way about how they made the character, so sympathetic, you can literally cry on this movie. I mean, yeah. This movie will definitely make you cry at some points, and it's just pretty sad. Granted, I never read the book, but it was still pretty good. It was still outstanding, and this movie will definitely make you cry. Top Gun Maverick, one of the best sequels of 2022. And one of the best films that I have seen throughout 2022. It basically pays homage and respects to the first movie, although it's not trying to be like the first. And it's overall pretty cool. It defines its unique in different ways ever since. I mean, I liked the first Top Gun movie, but it wasn't really my favorite action movie specifically. But this one was by far one of my favorite films that I've seen. It's absolutely pretty wonderful, and yet, well, pretty amazing. So emotional. The action is so intense, and the airplane sequences are overall pretty amazing. And the performances that Tom Cruise gives is pretty amazing. It's absolutely awesome. Great writing, great performances, and just overall one of the most respectful homages to the first movie, and just one of the best sequels of 2022. Just one of the best films in general. It's basically nostalgia that was done right. And then what we have next is Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Dragon Ball Super Superhero is by far one of the most anticipated films that I've seen. And plus, it's my first anime film that I've seen in theaters. Although not my first foreign film. That would go to IP Man and Parasite. But yeah, this was my first anime film that I've seen in theaters. And this is absolutely pretty awesome. I overall just really love this movie, and this is one of my favorite movies throughout 2022. And it's easily one of my favorite movies in 2022 in general. Now, for those of you who don't know me in real life, I love Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is by far one of my all-time favorite animes. In fact, I just absolutely am a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z. Like, for example, I got this autograph from Rose City Comic Con signed by Sean Schimmel, the voice of Goku. Wow, pretty cool guy. Games with Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I even collect some of the figures right here. And I also have the series on Blu-ray. I also religiously read the manga. Yep, I read the manga and I'm rereading it again. And I also even have the three Dragon Ball films. The three Dragon Ball films right here. Yep. Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F, and Dragon Ball Super Broly. All of the three Dragon Ball films. And this was one of the most epic Dragon Ball films I've ever seen, and one of the most epic anime films I've seen in general. Yep. And for those of you who do not know, yeah, I'm a massive fan of Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is by far one of my favorite animes ever made, and basically, yeah, it's one of my favorite animes in general. And when I first heard about Dragon Ball Superhero, I was really hyped up to see, and I went into the movie, seeing it in theaters, and I gotta say, it was absolutely pretty amazing. And overall, it is by far one of my favorite movies of 2022. This movie had really great potential to be really good, and it does a really solid job on making it more entertaining and having a great story as well. The animation does look really nice and is absolutely pretty awesome. And the action is well animated. It is animated and edited very well. It is overall outstanding. And just absolutely wonderful animation in my opinion. Just absolutely wonderful. Even though that, yeah, the CGI can be a little bit off sometimes, but it still is pretty good. And it still has like that Toriyama style to it. And especially with the flashback scenes with the hand-drawn animation style, that was pretty good and pretty cinematic still. And it's overall pretty amazing. And yeah, and even making it feel like the manga, which is absolutely awesome. The movie overall did a really amazing job recapping the events of the Red Ribbon Army saga from the original Dragon Ball, and also about the events before the Cell saga, before the Future Trunks and Android saga, and basically, yeah, they overall did a really amazing job with that. And one of my favorite parts of that was actually seeing the opening. The opening was amazing, and it was so chilling. It was really awesome. It felt more like a different type of movie, but they overall did a really amazing job with it. And I also really like the introduction of the new characters like Dr. Hiro and Gamma 1 and 2, which they're by far one of my favorite characters throughout Dragon Ball, and just by far one of the best characters I've seen. They overall did a really amazing job with developing these characters, and I didn't really expect to like these characters, and overall they are pretty cool. They do take a lot of inspiration from Ultraman and Kamen Rider, and a bit of Super Sentai as well, which, yeah, that's overall pretty cool. Especially for a Dragon Ball film, which that is amazing. They did a really excellent job with the action, especially with developing with these characters as well. Even though that I really wish we could have given more screen time with them, but you know, yeah. And of course, I really like the development with Gohan and Piccolo's character, which, yeah, while a Dragon Ball film would have focused on Goku and Vegeta, which Goku and Vegeta are in the movie, and they are still cool. They are still really awesome in the film, even though that they were only in there for like about a few minutes, and, well, they don't really appear through the entire film, which that was kind of sad. But, yeah, understandable, because they wanted to make room with the other characters like Gohan and Piccolo, focusing on the other characters. Gohan is by far one of my favorite characters, and I didn't really like about how he was not portrayed pretty well through Super, since in Super he was not as strong as he used to be back then, especially in Resurrection F and well, basically until like the Universal Tournament Saga, which shows his potential strength back. And yeah, ever since Peaceful Times and how Gohan has been taking a little break off training and everything like that, yeah, Peaceful Times had happened, and Gohan becomes a scholar and everything like that. But yeah, but seeing Gohan here and how they fixed Gohan's character was absolutely pretty awesome. And overall, yeah, they did a really amazing job with that. And also, I really like seeing Piccolo here. Piccolo here was overall pretty cool and was absolutely pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, he was awesome in Super Yaba. He didn't really do that much, but he still other than like doing some action, but still here, however, they did a really amazing job with developing Piccolo's character and everything like that, and also how he basically is trying to talk some sense into Gohan into focus on his training a bit more, even though that him as a scholar and doing his research and everything like that is a little bit important. But yeah, it was still pretty cool. And seeing the Red Ribbon Army again was pretty cool as well, especially with some nod characters to both the Red Ribbon Army arc and the Cell arc. And yeah, they overall did an amazing job, especially with developing Cell Max, which Cell Max was pretty cool, but there are some problems with Cell Max, which we'll get into later. But anyways, they overall did a really great job on bringing Gohan and Piccolo's character to justice. And I think that they overall did a really amazing job with it. And basically, yeah, Gohan being more motivated to save his daughter Pan from the Red Ribbon Army. And Piccolo basically helping him to try to motivate to fight again and to train, since, well, Piccolo is right. Basically, Peaceful Times had made Gohan soft as of recent, and, well, he's been lacking on his training a bit. Even though he has trained a bit from time to time, he hasn't been really training too much, as he is a little bit more focused on his job as a scholar, and basically, yeah, that's basically it. But they overall did a really amazing job bringing both Gohan and Piccolo's character to justice. Piccolo basically being overall super cool, and also having the characters to be around. They still have those same character arcs that they had throughout the Saiyan Saga and the Cell Saga, which that was absolutely pretty amazing. And the villains are overall pretty good too. And the other characters are overall pretty good too. But we're going to talk about the other characters. Dr. Hito, who basically is a huge fan of superheroes. And basically he's a scientist that is trying to develop a project, but doesn't really have any funding for him and everything like that. That wasn't until when the Red Ribbon Army approached him and they decided to fund his project for Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, the superheroes that we all know from the movie. And not only that, also helping them to work on Cell Max. And they did a really amazing job with that and everything. I mean, Dr. Hiro isn't really a typical bad guy. He's not a bad guy. He basically only joined the Red Ribbon Army just so that he could have more funding for his research, for his projects and everything like that. And yeah, he's not really a bad guy. I also really like characters like Gamma 1 and 2, since they were overall by far one of my favorite characters in the movie. I didn't really expect to like them, but they overall did a really amazing job to make them more likable characters. And Gamma 2 basically sacrificing himself to save Dr. Hiro and the rest of the Z Fighters' lives. That was absolutely pretty amazing. They overall did a really great job making the sacrifice scene very epic. And yeah, they overall did a really amazing job with the battle between Gohan, Piccolo, and Cell Max more epic. They did a really amazing job with that. And another thing what I also really like are the villains like Magenta. Magenta basically being the son of one of the characters from the Red Ribbon Army. Magenta basically being the son of Commander Red from the Red Ribbon Army arc from the original Dragon Ball. And Dr. Hiro is basically the grandson of Dr. Jiro from the Android arc. But overall, Dragon Ball Super Superhero is by far the best movie of 2022, and one of my favorite films I've ever seen throughout 2022. There are some flaws with this movie, though. Like, for example, the CGI can be a bit wonky at times, but it still is pretty good. I really wish that we could have gotten more screen time with Magenta and Hito, but unfortunately, they had to make room for Cell Max. But still, they did a really amazing job with their characters for the most part. But I really wish we could have gotten more screen time with them. But yeah, and I really like Cell Max, but the problem with Cell Max is with that sometimes he feels a bit more like Cell, but even though he's a little bit different, but a little bit more weaker than Cell. But otherwise, yeah, he still is by far one of the best villains throughout Dragon Ball. But yeah. Also, Piccolo wishing the Dragon Balls for a power off, which that could have, well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be like Piccolo, but you know, they gotta keep it moving for the plot and also for the really cool power-ups and everything like that. But I do really like the power-ups in this movie, like Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan. Those were by far one of the best power-ups I've seen, and seeing Beast Gohan was overall just pretty cool. That was absolutely pretty awesome, especially when how Gohan uses the special beam cannon in order to defeat Cell Max, and Piccolo turning into a giant like he did in the martial arts tournament arc in the original Dragon Ball and the martial arts tournament scenes. And overall, I really liked about how they did a really amazing job with the bonding between Gohan and Piccolo, and they overall did a really amazing job with that. And I overall what they really like with the characters, even though that I really wish that we could have seen more of Goku and Vegeta, and having Bulma to wish the Dragon Balls to make herself pretty again. I mean, don't get me wrong, that is comedic and that is definitely like Toriyama's style, but you know, I wish that they could have been a little bit more funny, but it's still funny though. And I really wish that we could have seen more of Goku and Vegeta, but you know, we gotta make room for Gohan and Piccolo. And again, Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan are overall pretty cool power-ups I've seen. One of the best power-ups in anime, and just one of the best power-ups in general. And yeah, they did a really amazing job with this movie. Then coming up for what we have next for this year 2020 for favorite movies and best movies of 2022 is Black Adam. Black Adam is by far one of the most anticipating films that I was really excited for 2022. I didn't really know what to expect other than that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was going to be playing Black Adam, and the JSA also being in there, like characters like Dr. Fate, Atom Smasher, Hawkman, and Cyclone appearing in the movie, which that was pretty cool. Seeing these characters adapting from the comics into the big screen for the first time, that was pretty cool. And Cyclone was overall pretty awesome, even though that, yeah, they could have gotten the characters a little bit more developed. But yeah, originally Stargirl was about to appear in the movie, but because of the CW show, I think that was airing at the time, they decided to replace her with Cyclone, which, yeah, but still, that was pretty cool, though. I also thought that Atom Smasher was overall pretty cool, and was just overall really funny. Plus, he's one of my favorite DC characters, and seeing him here was absolutely pretty awesome. It was pretty surprising, and the visuals for that are pretty amazing. The visual effects are so good. And even with Atom Smasher, you know, with his mask and everything like that, that looks more like the CGI of the Spider-Man mask in the MCU films and Deadpool, but they did a really amazing job with that, and the visual effects are outstanding. Dr. Fate, he's basically like Doctor Strange, but unlike Doctor Strange, he actually uses a helmet to basically use his power, to suit up and everything like that. And yeah, the helmet is basically the part of his character. Unlike Doctor Strange with the Cloak of Levitation, the helmet basically grants him any power and all that. And basically, yeah, but yeah, still, he is pretty cool, and he has one of the best powers ever. And even though that he's not like Doctor Strange, he still has pretty cool powers. And then there's Hawkman, who is by far one of the best characters I've seen, and he's overall one of the most developed characters in the movie. Then there's 10th Adam, aka Black Adam, which they did a really amazing job developing with his character and the tragic backstory that they had. And they did a really amazing job with the twist, in my opinion. They did a really amazing job with that. They also even teased a lot about him versus Shazam and him versus Superman, even though that Henry Cavill is no longer going to be playing Superman, which is pretty sad, but yeah. But still, they did a really amazing job with what they are given for this film, and they overall just had a really fun time here, and everyone seems to be having a really fun time. The only problem I have with this movie is that I probably wish that we could have gotten the characters a little bit more developed, like with the side characters, including with Atom Smasher and Cyclone, and also a little bit more character depth with Dr. Fate as well. And yeah, but hey, it was still pretty fun, and I overall really like about how it expanded more of the DC Extended Universe. They did a really amazing job expanding more of the DC Extended Universe. This is something that was a lot more better than what Marvel was dishing out, because let's be honest, Marvel movies are not very good for as of 2022. Marvel movies have been pretty much lacking ever since back in 2021, and then in 2022 it just got worse from there. And let's be honest, 2022 wasn't really a good year for Marvel movies or shows to be released. Yep. Wasn't a really good year for Marvel at all, as Marvel was at a pickle. VFX artists were being overstaffed, overmanaged, not managed very well, and everything like that. And behind the scenes drama through Marvel, rush productions for films and TV shows, and basically, yeah, and the lack of entertainment. And then coming up for what we got is Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night is by far one of my favorite MCU films of 2022. Even though that it is a Halloween special, it is still considered to be an MCU movie still. And even if it is on Disney Plus, it is still considered to be an MCU movie. It is by far one of the best Halloween specials I've seen, and by far one of the best MCU films I've seen. And it is overall just really horror-like, and it does a really great job on paying homage to old school horror movies, and overall it does a really great job on expanding more of the horror elements in the MCU, probably more than Multiverse of Madness, and they did a really amazing job with that. The characters are also pretty well developed, like the werewolf and overall the hunter as well, which that was pretty cool. And we also got Man-Thing, which that was pretty cool. Man-Thing is like Swamp Thing, even though that Swamp Thing is more popular than Man-Thing, and his origin story is a little different compared to Swamp Thing. But yeah, the design for Man-Thing is still pretty cool, and it basically has like the same design from the comics, and they overall did a really amazing job with the CGI and the animatronic type look. In overall, but sometimes there are moments where I can't tell whether it is CGI or whether it's not CGI, but they did a really amazing job with the design for Man-Thing. The visual effects and the CGI are pretty good. Not great, but still pretty good. And they did a really amazing job with the animatronic scene that looked overall pretty amazing, and does a really great job with referencing the homage to old school horror movies. Plus, this movie was directed by the same guy who did the music for the MCU, which that was overall pretty amazing. He did a really amazing job with shooting the movie, the black and white elements for this movie, and the horror elements for this movie. That was overall pretty good, and I really like how the movie looks. It looks aspiring. It looks amazing. It looks more like a student film, but it's still pretty cool in a really good way, and overall it is amazing. The only problem I have with it is that I really wish that the characters could have been more developed, but they're developed for the most part, and I really wish that we could have gotten more screen time with Man-Thing, and I really wish that they could have expanded a little bit more with the horror elements of the MCU, and I really wish that the CGI could have done a little bit more better, because there are moments where I could still tell that it is CGI, but still, they did a really amazing job with it. Then we have One Piece Film Red. One Piece Film Red is by far one of my favorite anime movies of all time, and is one of my favorite anime films of 2022. Plus, it's the second anime film I've seen in theaters, with, of course, the first being Dragon Ball Superhero. And as you all know, I've been a One Piece fan since I was very young. Ever since I watched the show on 4Kids, then later I watched it on Toonami, and I grew up reading the manga. I grew up watching the show on Netflix with my friends, and I remember that there were some friends of mine that drew the characters from the show, and I watched the anime a lot, and hell, I even collect the toys. But yeah, I was overall pretty much a big fan of One Piece. I even see some of the One Piece movies, and basically, yeah, reading the manga is overall pretty awesome in my opinion. But anyways, yeah, and watching the show was overall pretty cool too. Anyways, yeah. When I saw this movie, I was pretty intrigued with the animation visuals and everything like that. And this movie grabbed my attention, and I knew something that it was pretty much very special. In fact, I went into the theater, and I went to see the theater, and there were like a lot of people that went to see it. Probably more people than how they saw Dragon Ball Superhero. And basically, they were wearing like costumes of their favorite characters. They were also even wearing straw hats, and basically, yeah. And overall, that was pretty amazing. And when I saw this movie, I was excited. I was excited, and I gotta say, it was overall pretty good, and by far one of my favorite anime films of 2022. Right next to Dragon Ball Superhero. Anyways, basically, yeah. Anyways, this movie basically overall has some really good animation, but let's not just say about the story itself. The story is overall just pretty amazing, and is absolutely pretty wonderful, and is entertaining, where we get to focus on this character named Uta, the daughter of Shanks, and also Luffy's childhood friend. And basically, Luffy reunites with Uta, and Luffy even asks about what happened to her, and hasn't really seen her since she left. And things have changed with Uta, and not for the better per se. Uta is by far one of the best characters I've seen. She is one of the best characters that has ever been developed, and one of the best villains ever. At first, she maybe seemed like a villain, but she proves to be more than that, to be a villain, and her backstory is overall just pretty tragic than what I've seen from most tragic backstories from One Piece. At first, Uta wanted to become a pirate like her father, Shanks, but over time, she changes her point of view of pirates. And plus, she's not really a villain per se. She's not really evil. All she ever wanted was to keep people in a safe place where there are no pirates and people can live in peace. But she does that by enslaving an entire people in some sort of illusion. Yeah, that's really bad. Probably way more bad than how Wanda did it in WandaVision. Plus, the flashback scenes are overall pretty amazing, and Luffy has basically a lot more depth in this film. Luffy basically having more depth, and even with the flashback scenes between the bonding of him and Uta, yeah, that was overall pretty cool. And that was overall very emotional as well, because some of these flashback scenes are just pretty sad, but yet are so really, really cool. And yeah, some of these flashback scenes could be a bit sad sometimes. This movie can definitely put a single tear in your eye. The musical numbers are outstanding, and they are well awesome. The animation does look really nice and is well animated. The characters are well drawn pretty well, and the action is overall amazing, and it is well animated, and the characters are overall pretty likable. The characters that we all know and love from the anime are pretty likable. From the show are pretty likable, especially with introductions of new characters like Uta and other types of characters. And basically, yeah, they overall did a really amazing job with that. And even with the development of the characters, mainly Luffy and Uta, since they by far have really great depths and overall have some really great character development. Luffy basically didn't want to fight his childhood friend, but has to, since she's basically doing something really, really bad, and also has to free other people from, also has to free a lot of people from the illusion, and she's also eating some of these mushrooms in order to power up to make sure that the people are staying in this illusion. And the other thing I really like are the musical numbers. I've already talked about the musical numbers, but I think I want to talk a little bit more about it. The musical numbers are just outstanding and pretty memorable, and they are just overall just really amazing in my opinion, and they fit very well through the story. And even at some emotional scenes, they make the scenes even more sadder, especially with at the end in the final battle between Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats and the Red Pirates and Uta. That was overall pretty amazing, and that was well animated. The action is well animated and pretty good. By far one of the best action scenes I've seen in One Piece, and the best action scenes I've seen in anime and in film in general. Plus the ending of One Piece Film Red, it was something that you didn't really expect. I mean, usually from some of the movies, it has a happier ending. From what I've seen, they have a happier ending. But in this one, however, this one has a really sad ending where nobody wins. It's all a loss. And it's heavily implied in the movie that Uta dies in the movie. And that was just overall really, really sad. The ending is overall pretty sad, but yet it fits very well through the tone of the movie. This movie is just so emotional. The movie can be sad at times as well. And this movie will definitely make you cry, especially through the musical scenes as well. And overall, it does a really great job with the story and the characters. And yeah, especially with the development of Uta, who basically, she's a villain that you look into her depth and having a tragic backstory and everything like that, and having the powers to sing. And basically, yeah, Uta's by far one of the best characters I've seen in the film, and she's pretty much developed in this movie, and is pretty much one of the best villains that I've seen in anime, and the best films that I've seen in film history. Even though she's not really a villain, and basically she basically wants peace, and she wants to spread happiness and joy around the world. But she does a really bad thing, though. At the same time, she wasn't herself, however. But then again, yeah, she did some pretty questionable things, yes, but all she ever wanted was just peace, and wanted a world where there are no pirates or anything like that, and even wanted Luffy to stop being a pirate and finding the One Piece. And yeah, that's basically what she was trying to do. But that plan ended up being backfired because Luffy obviously doesn't want to stop being a pirate and doesn't want to stop finding the One Piece. But yeah, everything that we have seen throughout this movie was absolutely really amazing, and yet so emotional. And there are moments that are pretty sad, like the ending, for example. Like I said, the ending is basically a loss. There's nothing happy about the ending at all. Nobody wins. It's all a loss. And it's heavily implied that Uta dies possibly because of the mushrooms that she's been eating in order to power up and maintain the illusion. And yeah. Plus, seeing Shanks and the rest of the Red Pirates was pretty awesome. That was overall really cool, and by far just amazing seeing both the Straw Hats and the Red Pirates teaming up. That was pretty cool. Yep. And this is a movie that I definitely recommend you to see. This is the best film I've seen in 2022. But yeah, in other words, One Piece Film Red is by far the best anime film that I've seen of 2022. It has fun action, it has really great characters, it has overall a really great story, and has pretty much so much more emotional depth into it, and has a lot of emotional scenes. It is by far one of my favorite anime films of 2022. And yeah. And the ending, like I said, the ending, it's a loss. No winners. It's just overall pretty sad. Yep. Pretty sad. Then coming up for what we have is Nope. Nope is by far one of the most WTF films that I have seen, brilliantly directed by Jordan Peele, and ever since seeing his films like Get Out and Us, and now seeing this movie, that was absolutely pretty awesome. I didn't really know what to expect from this movie other than that this movie was directed by Jordan Peele, but I knew something like Get Out and Us was going to happen in this, something WTF type moment, and I gotta say, it was absolutely impressive. I really liked the story. I thought that the story was pretty good. I liked the twists in this. I liked the shocking imagery, and I basically overall just really liked the characters, and the interesting facts around this movie, and the interesting stories that the interesting backstories that they have to tell for these characters, and especially the side characters like the Best Buy guy and the film editor, which that was overall pretty cool. And seeing that camera that the film editor had, that was pretty amazing. I thought that was pretty awesome, and I thought that was pretty good. It's like a homage to I think it's like a homage to basically old Alien movies, but at the same time, the alien is something incredibly bizarre. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but wow, it is so bizarre. Incredibly bizarre. And the shocking imagery is overall just outstanding. It's something unexpected from Jordan Peele, like Get Out and Us, but wow, that was pretty good. The only problem I have with this movie is that the look in the movie could have done a little bit more better, and the CGI could have done a little bit more better. I mean, the CGI is good, but there are moments where I could tell that it is CGI, and that it feels more like a series on, Netflix or something like that. But basically, yeah, they could have done much better with that. But in other words, still a really good movie, and it's one of the most funnest and shocking horror films that I've seen of 2022. Then coming up for what we have is Avatar: Way of Water. Avatar: Way of Water is by far one of the best sequels and one of the most anticipated sequels out there to the first Avatar movie. To sum it up, I really liked the first Avatar movie. I thought that it was pretty good, even though that it wasn't great by any means. But still, it was good with some of its fun action, its great visuals, and great characters. And when I heard that there was going to be a sequel, I was pretty hyped up. I mean, this movie took 13 years to make, and the CGI was overall just really advanced. I mean, CGI has basically advanced over the years. But yeah, that was pretty fun. And seeing this, that was absolutely pretty cool. Yeah. I really like about how they improved the characters, including the introduction of the other characters, like the characters' kids. I forgot their names, but one of them I believe was Spider, Jake and Natiri's adopted son, and the son of the villain from the first movie. And the villain from the first movie also returns, which that was pretty cool. Miles Coleridge basically gets to return into this, and he looks badass than he was in the first movie. And basically, yeah, and even though he is a generic villain, he still is one of the most funnest villains that people has ever seen. Plus, he made the first Avatar movie more memorable. And yeah, the visual effects are by far amazing, a lot more better than the first movie. The story is a lot more better than the first movie, but there are moments where I really wish it could have been much better. Like, for example, I really wish that they could have developed more with the side characters, but the side characters are alright for the most part, but they could have developed a little bit more on the side characters. The stakes for this movie are overall pretty high, and the CGI is just so amazing, and the scenes are just, and the action scenes are just well shot and well edited, and the camera movements are just pretty awesome. The cinematography looks cool. The CGI again looks really amazing, especially the underwater mocap CGI. That was overall pretty cool, and that was absolutely pretty fun. It's by far one of the best CGI that I've ever seen put into film. And basically, yeah, Cameron overall does a really great job on his directorial and the sequel. And yeah, they did a really amazing job with the directorial for the first movie. The directorial in the second film as well, which, yeah, that was pretty cool. I really liked about how well the film was shot and was well edited, and how the CGI visuals look really, really good by far standards. A lot more better than the first, and they hold up pretty well. And basically, yeah, this is by far one of my favorite movies of 2022, and one of my favorite sequels of 2022. Then coming up for what we have next is Spirited. Spirited is by far one of the best Christmas movies I've seen. There are flaws with this movie, but I'm going to be talking about the positives of this film. This movie has a pretty interesting story. I mean, on the surface it may seem like It's a Wonderful Life, but throughout the movie, it's not really like a retelling of It's a Wonderful Life, and it shows to be more than just that. They did a really amazing job on the characters, like with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds' characters. Like Will Ferrell's character trying to talk about redemption and all that. I mean, the movie does have something nice and, talking about redemption and what it is for redemption and all that, and it's that easy. And yeah, Ryan Reynolds' character was also pretty awesome, and definitely one of the most relatable characters. It's not like a typical sob story or like any type of Christmas movie I've seen before. It proves to be more than just that. I overall really like the performances as well. The performances are overall really good, and I overall really like the musical numbers. Although there are some musical numbers that do take me a bit away from the movie, and it does kind of bother me a little bit. Not to say it's bad, but it could have done a little bit better. The one thing that I really had problems with this movie is the pacing. The pacing is jarring in my opinion. The pacing is like really, really fast, and it's really jarring, and it could take you away a bit from the story. But in other words, it is still a pretty good movie, and it's still a fun Christmas movie for me to watch. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Now, this movie that I've seen, this version of Pinocchio, was pretty interesting, and is not like any of the typical incarnations of Pinocchio I've seen. It proves to be more than just that. It has a dark story. It basically has a sad story for Pinocchio, and it's not like anything that I have seen before. It's not like anything from the classic Disney film, and any of the films I've seen. And those other two Pinocchio movies are terrible. Like, the one with Lionsgate and then the other one, the Disney remake, that was awful, and the CGI is not that good. This movie, however, proves to be a lot more better and different compared to the most previous incarnations of Pinocchio. It has like a really sad story, a really dark story into it, and it has one of the most gruesome and graphic deaths that I've ever seen, especially in an animated film. That is some pretty dark stuff. And this movie takes place in World War II. The movie can be very, very sad at times, and be prepared because the ending itself will definitely make you cry. The movie itself will make you cry. The musical numbers are pretty good. The movie is brilliantly directed by Guillermo del Toro, the man behind films like Blade 2, Hellboy, Pacifist, and Pacific Rim, and The Shape of Water. And now his directorial here, that was pretty amazing, and is by far one of my favorite movies of 2022. The ending alone will definitely make you cry. Be careful because, you know, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is by far one of the best holiday specials I've seen, and is another one of the best MCU films out there. I mean, it does a really great job on the musical numbers and on the characters as well, expanding a little bit more, and especially with bringing Kevin Bacon, which I thought bringing Kevin Bacon into this was overall pretty cool. And I also really like how they reference other stars that James Gunn has worked with. And I even like the flashback scenes between Yondu, Peter, their first Christmas in outer space, Peter's first Christmas in outer space, this time with Yondu and the rest of the Ravengers, even though Yondu didn't really like Christmas and all that. But still, we get to learn about the toy from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie where Yondu got it from, and yeah, that was pretty awesome. Also the guns, of how Peter got those guns that we see through Guardians Volume 1 and 2, and yeah. And I overall really like about how this will probably be a bit more connected to Guardians Volume 3, even though that I really wish that they could have explained about how this would connect to Guardians Volume 3, but hey, it's alright for what it is, and it's just a fun Christmas special, and overall just amazing in my opinion. Wendell and Wild, a great stop-motion animated film of 2022, and a great comeback to director Henry Selick, the man behind films like Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. Overall, an intriguing story, fun comedy, great characters, and great storytelling, and some great side characters here and there. The only problem that I have with this film is that the pacing. The pacing is a bit of a mess, and it sometimes can be all over the place. And sometimes the editing can be a bit jarring, like Spirited, and everything just happens a little bit fast. But in other words, it is still pretty good. And it has brilliant animation, it has a fun story, and it has some great characters. Although I really wish that the side characters could have been a little bit more developed, but in other words, it's still a good movie, and it's still a great comeback for Henry Selick. Then, coming up for what we have next is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was by far one of the most hyped up films that I was pretty much hyped up for ever since that it got announced back in D23 of 2019. But ever since the passing of Chadwick Boseman, it was heartbreaking, and people were wondering about how are they going to do a Black Panther movie without T'Challa, without Chadwick. And well, Ryan Coogler decided to go back to the writing board And, well, here we have it. And what do I think of this movie? It was pretty good. And it was a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Overall, I think that this movie was a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in peace. And it's just overall one of the most devastating MCU films I've seen. Probably more devastating than Endgame. And this is one of the best MCU films out there. And probably the best of Phase 4. And a great conclusion to Phase 4. At least in my opinion. And yeah, this is how you ended Phase 4. Overall, this was a great conclusion to Phase 4 of the MCU. And I am very excited what they're going to do next. But yeah. Yeah, the movie overall has a really great job developing on the characters from the first movie, like Shuri, for example, who is the main character of this movie, where Shuri basically is heartbroken. She is devastated after the loss of her brother T'Challa, and yeah, the opening of the movie was one of the most saddest openings I've seen in a movie, let alone in an MCU movie, in a Marvel movie. That was pretty sad, and it was pretty. It was speechless. I'm speechless. I didn't know what to say, but wow, it's pretty sad. And throughout this movie, we get enough more screen time with the other characters, even though I really wish that we could have given more screen time with the other characters, like Okoye, for example. Okoye is still pretty cool, like she was in the first movie. Although I really wish that they could have given her a little bit more screen time, but yeah. And then there's Riri Williams. Riri Williams, who is by far one of the best characters that I've seen in the MCU, and I really like the introduction that they pulled for Ironheart, and I can't wait to see her in her own solo series on Disney Plus. And yeah, I mean, that was pretty awesome, even though I really wish that they could have given Riri a little bit more screen time, but you know, they did a really amazing job with that. And the action is just overall really amazing. Namor the Submariner is by far one of the best Marvel villains ever. Even though he's not really a villain, he's basically just an anti-hero, even though he doesn't become an anti-hero until later on. But yeah, I really liked about how they did a pretty amazing job with his character, even though that they changed his backstory from the comics. They changed his character. They changed the majority of his character, even though that he still has the same personality like the comics, but the character is a little different compared to the comics. But they did a really amazing job with that, though. And his backstory is overall pretty tragic. And yeah, but there are problems with the backstory. Like, I really wish they could have developed a little bit more of it. But yeah. And well, let me see. There are problems with this movie, to say the least. There are some issues I have with it. Like, sometimes the CGI can be, you know, a little bit shaky at times, a bit wonky at times, but the CGI is overall pretty good. The CGI, for the most part, is absolutely amazing, and the cinematography is outstanding. The way about how this movie looks, the way about how the movie is shot and edited very well, it is pretty amazing. Especially with the opening, with the funeral scene, the way how it's shot is really, really good, and it's well directed and well edited. Ryan Coogler did a really amazing job with the direction for this film, like how he did with the first movie. And yeah, although there are some flaws with this movie, to say the least, like the pacing. The pacing sometimes can go a little bit fast, which is an issue with some MCU movies. And I really wish that we could have gotten a little bit more set locations, and I really wish we could have gotten more screen time a bit with the other side characters like Okoye and Riri, but, you know, I'll take what I can get then. But, in other words, it is still a really, really great MCU movie, and it's overall really amazing out of all the Phase 4 MCU films, and a great conclusion to Phase 4. And I can't wait to see what they're going to do next with Phase 5. And it brought my faith back into the MCU. And I'm hoping to see more in the near future. But, yeah. I am pretty excited to see what they're going to do next for the MCU. And then coming up for what we have is one of my favorite films of 2023. And one of the most anticipated films that I was hyped up for. Clerks 3. Clerks 3 was by far one of the most anticipated sequels that I was excited for ever since the announcement of Clerks 3. I am a pretty huge fan of Kevin Smith. As you all know, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I really like Kevin Smith movies, like with the first Clerks movie, and Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and Clerks 2. And basically, yeah. Plus, this was a really great comeback to the VSQ universe. Although this is not the first time that the VSQ universe have made a comeback. The first time that it happened, that they made a comeback for the VSQ universe, was with Jay and Silent Bob reboot. And the movie does have some flaws. Like, the movie can be a bit meta sometimes. Here, however, it's absolutely pretty amazing. Even though that, yeah, it pays homage to the first movie and to the second movie as well. But they did a really great job tying in those stories pretty well. And basically, yeah, there are flaws with this movie. To be fair, I'm not blinded to see some of its flaws. Like, for example, I really wish that the writing could have done a little bit more better, and sometimes the pacing could be a little bit more better. And yeah, I overall really wish that we could have gotten more development, more development screen time with one of the side characters. Like, I think, what was his name again? Tobias or something like that. From the second movie, now he appears in the third movie. And, yeah, also, I really wish that we could have gotten a bit more callbacks to other previous VSQ universe, like probably a callback to Mallrats or something like that. But, in other words, it was still pretty cool. It was still pretty cool. And I really like how it did a really amazing job bringing callbacks to previous VSQ universe films, and they overall did a really amazing job with it. And it's also a great conclusion to both Dante and Randall's story, and I think they did a really amazing job with that, especially with how they went through the emotional scenes. Like, the scenes are very, very emotional because the movie has a gut-wrenching ending, and the movie can definitely pull you tears at times, like when Dante visits Becky's grave and everything like that, and we learn about what happened to Becky, and yeah, I mean, the way about how we learned the tragic backstory of what happened to Becky, that was pretty sad. And it was overall one of the most saddest things that happened in the first film. And you really can't help but feel sad for Dante after losing the love of his life, after losing Becky, and of course, along with that, the unborn child as well. That was pretty sad, and one of the most emotional scenes in the movie. But one of the most emotional scenes in the movie was basically the ending, where Randall gets to talk to Dante one last time. And spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen it, Dante dies. It's one of the most saddest endings I've ever seen. And it's by far one of the most emotional films of 2022 I've seen. But it's overall a really great movie overall, and one of the best sequels, and a great conclusion to both Dante and Randall's story. And I can't wait to see what Kevin Smith has planned for more of his films in the near future. Like, I heard he's developing a Mallrats 2, which I really want to see. Mallrats 2. I really want to see that. A sequel to the second Mallrats. Probably won't be as good as the first or enjoyable as the first, but yeah. But overall, Clerks 3 is by far one of my favorite sequels, and I definitely recommend it. That was it. That was 2022. 2022 wasn't really a good year for Marvel movies to be released. It also wasn't really a good year for DC, and basically, yeah, it wasn't a good year. It was kind of lacking entertainment with movies and TV shows. And TV shows have started to decline ever since. And not only that, Marvel movies have seemed to be declining a lot, including Marvel shows as well. And Marvel was kind of losing quality with their movies and shows. And Pixar kind of sucks now. They're not as good as they used to be back then. And, well, the lack of entertainment and some tragedies that happen. Again, there are some tragedies that happen in 2022, especially with a lot of people dying in 2022, like Kevin Conroy and Jason David Frank. May they rest in peace. Yeah. But there were some good things of 2022. But I'm definitely going to miss 2022, and I can't wait to see what's in store for 2023. And yeah, I'm very excited for what we're going to have in store for 2023. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching for this video. And if you like this video, please subscribe, like, share, and comment. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.
新時代はこの未来だ世界中全部変えてしまえば変えてしまえば邪魔者嫌なものなんて消してこの世とメタモルフォーゼショーゼンミュージック君が起こすマジック目を閉じれば未来が開いていつまでも終わりが来ないようにってこの歌を歌うよ You wanna be リアルゲンギリギリ綱渡りみたいな旋律認めない戻れない忘れた夢の中にさして I want be free 見えるよ信じたいが世界のゴール最後よ You are 新時代はこの未来だ世界中全部変えてしまえば変えてしまえば果てしない音楽がもっと飛ばすように夢はないわ君が成した僕を信じてあれこれいらないものは消してリアルをカラフルに超えようぜミュージック今始まるライジング目をつぶりみんなで逃げようよ今よりいいものを見せて